Hey everyone, I'm Daryl Stringer. Welcome to episode 16 of the Builder Photography Business Show. This is where I help photographers like you with photography, marketing, and pricing. And let me just bring up what we're going to cover today. We're going to look at procrastination, perfectionism, and photography. So, if putting things off or feeling like everything has to be perfect is holding you back from doing the things you need to do in your business, then stick around for this call. We're going to look at the impact of this, and it's pretty huge, and then we'll go through some ways to overcome it. After that, we'll have an open question and answer time. So if you are watching live and you want to ask about what you can do, or if you want to share an experience of yours, then drop any comments below this video, and I might share your comment during the show. Now, do you procrastinate on things? Are you a perfectionist? Do you ever have doubts about your ability as a photographer? Worried that one day someone is going to expose you as a fraud who's actually not that good at what you do? Look, leave a comment if any of that describes you. I'd love to see some of you talking about this. You see, those feelings that you have, believe it or not, it's experienced by a lot of photographers. And if you ever feel that way, if you ever feel like being a photographer is beyond you and you don't really belong here, it can impact your business in a few different ways. First of all, when you think you're not really good enough, you feel like you shouldn't charge a high fee for a photo shoot. That damages your finances because you're not earning enough to really thrive, and your brand is depleted as well because you position yourself as the cheap photographer. Next up, maybe you procrastinate on doing certain things because you think you're not good enough and you're afraid others will find out your secret about how bad you are. So there might be this great list of things that you want to do and which would be great for your business, but you keep putting them off and putting them off because you're afraid of failing. And where you're at right now is better than failure, so you stay where you are. As another example, when you're a perfectionist, maybe you don't pursue more clients because you feel like you still need to get a little bit better first. So you're in a constant cycle of learn more skills, get better at what you do, but you never get off the training wheels because you think you need to be perfect like all the other photographers out there. But here's the secret. We're not perfect, not by a long way. Now, speaking of photography, maybe you overshoot when you're on location, getting lots of angles and lots of exposures because you don't trust yourself to get it right. So you spend too long doing photo shoots. But then when you're editing your images, you see that you actually did pretty well, but you credit your overshooting with helping you get it right. So you kind of fuel the cycle and the need to take more photos than you really need. And then next time you're shooting, you once again, you just take too many photos. Now, when you combine this problem of overshooting with your unwillingness to charge high fees, that can be a real problem and your business can really struggle. Now, finally, maybe you reject the great feedback you get from your clients because you think you know better and either they were just being polite or you just got lucky with that particular photo shoot. Maybe you keep saying it's luck rather than maybe acknowledge your skill and brilliance as a photographer. Now, does any of that sound like you? Look, it's a problem for so many photographers, and this thing has a name. It's called imposter syndrome. Most of us underestimate our ability at least some of the time, and it's because we feel like imposters. And as you can see, it can have a huge negative impact on your business. It can really hold you back in a whole range of ways. So, how do you overcome it? How do you beat this procrastination and perfectionism and instead humbly acknowledge your ability as a photographer and a business owner? First of all, imposter syndrome and perfectionism are mindset things. They start up here right? So the solution is going to start up there as well. But then it's going to transfer into things you do. So we want to get the thinking right, and then we get the doing right. Okay, does that make sense? Okay. One of the best things to do is to acknowledge that these feelings are something other amazing and successful people experience as well. I think it's estimated that maybe 70% of people in business experience imposter syndrome, and it might be even more than that. And we're not just talking about small business owners, but we're talking about executives and CEOs and even people like Maya Angelou and Tom Hanks and Neil Armstrong and Howard Schultz. They've all spoken about their imposter syndrome and how unqualified they feel at times. So next time those doubts arise, just say to yourself, I know what this is, and I know that successful photographers and others have these feelings too. Now, even acknowledging that can be super helpful for a lot of photographers. Now, another thing you can do to get past your perfectionism, and this works when you're procrastinating as well, and that is to firstly tell yourself that it's normal to not be perfect. It's normal. None of us can do it. And because you're just like everyone else and you can't do things perfectly all the time, that gives you room to start on whatever it is you need to do. I mean, if it doesn't have to be perfect, then just get started on it. So maybe focus on just simply giving it a try. And that's going to help take care of your procrastination as well, because you're actually getting started on something. Now, another thing you might want to do is keep a record of the nice feedback you get from your clients. So whenever you get an email or some verbal feedback, add it to a document so you keep it all in one place. And then you can read all of that positive feedback whenever you feel like an imposter or whenever you're about to head off to do a really difficult photo shoot or something like that. Now, at the moment, you might dismiss this feedback as people being misinformed, or maybe you say that you just got lucky on each of those photo shoots. But honestly, can all of those clients of yours really be so blind? I really think it's much more likely that, you know what? You're really good at this, okay? You're really good at this. Now, something else you can do when you have those doubts is to tell yourself that just because you feel inadequate or underqualified, that doesn't mean you are. So what you need to do is to identify the moments when you doubt yourself and reframe things in your head. So maybe you say, I might feel underqualified, but what I feel does not define who I am. I can do this. Now, maybe that sounds a bit cheesy, but imposter syndrome is one mindset. So we just need to replace it with another mindset. Okay, to use an old camera analogy, it's just like replacing one roll of film with another roll of film. So imagine that the roll of ISO 100 film is the imposter syndrome mindset. So we want to take that out and put in some ISO 400, and that's like the reframed mindset that says you're competent and you deliver awesome images. So we switch one out and we put another one in. Right? Does that make sense? Okay. Now, I'm not saying that it's easy to do this, and really it might take some time for you to get used to that, but it's really what we're going for in terms of getting rid of that way of thinking that says that you're underqualified, because it's just not true. All right. What we've been talking about so far is pretty general, but for photographers, the way this often plays out is that maybe you doubt your abilities to overshoot or to shoot a home, so you overshoot. And you take way too many exposures and you're shooting every angle that you can find. So maybe what you're trying to do is to maybe overcompensate for feeling like a fraud, and you're not sure that you really deserve to be paid to shoot a home. Now, if that's something you do, then maybe do some of the things we just spoke about. So acknowledge, first of all, that photographers, successful ones, also feel like an imposter at times. Secondly, keep a record of positive feedback. And thirdly, replace the imposter mindset with another mindset that is gracious towards yourself and that says that you can do this. Okay? Now, like that's the mindset side. But I'd also deal with the photography side. And I'd suggest that maybe you do some practice shoots where you very intentionally take fewer images and try and get comfortable with that. Maybe you can visit your neighbors or family members, but go somewhere away from your clients and practice and practice and practice. Now, it might take you a few photo shoots to get the numbers down, and that's going to be okay. I'd also suggest after each of those practice photo shoots that you get some feedback from other photographers or from your coach or someone whose opinion you respect. But when you do that, listen to what they're saying. And if they say that you've done a great job, believe them. Take their feedback seriously, and hopefully that will give you the confidence to push back against that false idea that says you need to take a zillion photos in a home. Okay, is that making sense? Okay, here's another option. Acknowledge that everyone makes mistakes sometimes. I make mistakes. Other real estate photographers in your area make mistakes. The best architectural photographers in the world make mistakes. So when things go wrong, and they will, don't let them define you, but see them as learning experiences that will help you grow as a photographer. So you're going to learn from those situations and it's going to help you get better. So focus on the learning above everything else, and that'll help you be more comfortable when you do make a mistake. Now, finally, it might help to acknowledge that as a real estate or architectural photographer, there are no formal qualifications, so don't ever feel like you're underqualified. There's no special course or certificate that the rest of us have got and you don't. But really, we're pretty much all in the same boat here. If you can shoot well and if you can run a business, and the bar is not very high when it comes to being a business owner, so don't set unrealistic expectations there. But if you can do those things, then you're qualified. So that's all you need to do, and it's not beyond you at all. But let me say this though, okay? If you allow imposter syndrome to hang around, then you will struggle because it becomes like a self-fulfilling prophecy. You have this fear that you can't do this, so you hold back from doing the things you need to do to grow your business, and that causes your business to struggle. But if you can use some of the ideas we've just spoken about, then hopefully you can kick away that perfectionism and stop procrastinating. You can start doing the things you need to do. You can shoot efficiently without taking 1,000 exposures, and you can charge appropriately for the awesome work you do. Okay? All right, so let's just be really clear. You are good enough to do this. Humbly recognize that. Take steps to release yourself from that imposter syndrome, and start working on the things you do without feeling like it has to be perfect. Now, if you do all of those things, now you might still feel like an imposter at times. You may not totally get rid of it. Very few of us do. But what you will do, though, is reduce its impact on you. So instead of being like a weight around you that stops you from moving, it's more of a piece of chewing gum on your shoe. It gets annoying, but it's not going to stop you anymore. Okay, now it's time for some Q&A. So if you're watching live, do you have any questions or comments about that? So what will you try and change to overcome imposter syndrome? While you're doing that, let's quickly go over the ways that you can overcome this. So the things that we just talked about. Number one was to acknowledge that 70% of the population go through this, even very successful people like billionaires and others. So putting a name to this thing and knowing that almost everyone gets it can be a big help. Number two is to tell yourself that it's normal to not be perfect. Number three is to keep a record of the great feedback you get from your clients. Number four, we said, is to tell yourself that just because you feel underqualified, that doesn't mean you are underqualified. Number 5, if you take too many photos, then do some practice sessions where you intentionally take fewer images and then get some feedback from people you respect. Number 6 is to acknowledge that we all make mistakes, even experienced photographers like myself and those who are far better than me. And finally, there are no qualifications needed to be a photographer, so don't feel underqualified. So that's 7 things you can do. And if you have any questions now or later on, if you're watching the replay, leave a comment below or feel free to send me a message or email at any time. Okay, so that's it for today's show. If you aren't yet following me, then let me show you. Here's where you can find me on social media. I'm there at Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and LinkedIn. If you want to send me an email, daryl@buildaphotographybusiness.com. All right, thanks everyone for joining in, and I'll see you next time. All right, bye for now.